reporting for duty. It's your brother, co-signer the Prince, and this is my podcast, Conversation with an 80s baby. Welcome.
The revolution will not be televised, but it will be streamed live.
In my opinion, the Bloods and the Crips are more dangerous to black people today than the Ku Klux Klan. Furthermore, since 1980 in the United States of America, the Bloods and Crips have killed more black people, specifically young black men, than the Ku Klux Klan. And for the sake of this podcast and our conversation, if you want, we can call that my hypothesis or the main idea of what we're going to talk about today. As a black American, it frightens me. It frightens me to know that the Bloods and the Crips, the street gang, of course, one of them wears red, one of them wears blue, that they kill more black people than the Ku Klux Klan. It frightens me as a parent of black children, of a black son. And to be completely honest with you, gang violence, black on black violence, street gangs, they are a bigger threat to my son, my black son, my black daughters than the Ku Klux Klan. Because in my opinion, time is circular, not linear. Once upon a time, there was no such thing as a Blood or a Crip, but there was a Ku Klux Klan. And once upon a time, there was no such thing as a Ku Klux Klan, but there was the slave master and the overseer. And once upon a time, there was no such thing as a plantation and no such thing as the United States of America. And we were Nubians and not Negroes. And once upon a time, there were no Nubians. And whoever those people were, there were prejudices and racism and oppression in their society. Knowing that time is circular, I got to deal with the right here and the right now. I'm an 80s baby, and we are a unique generation in American history. We are the generation between Generation X, Generation Z. Why? Why aren't we called Generation Y? No, they call them millennials. That's the mainstream term. I don't consider myself a millennial. To be honest, I don't like labels at all. You'll find that Cosigner the Prince isn't a Democrat or a Republican. I'm not a conservative or liberal. I don't have any rings with tools on them. I'm a free thinker, or I like to think I'm a free thinker, and I'm free to think that. As I said, gang violence is the number one internal threat to black Americans today. And let's make that clear, internal. Am I a house Negro or a field Negro? To be honest, I don't know. Because I'm a student of history. And as a student of history, I cannot say what I would have done if I was there. But to be completely honest with you, knowing what I know about transatlantic slave trade, and the hundreds of years of enslavement in this country. To be completely honest with you, if I was born back then, I would have been on the plantation doing what the master and the overseers forced me to do. Most likely. I mean, the way I think about it right now, I'm part of the 99%. So I would have been part of the 99% back then. The 1% being the Harriet Tubmans, the Nat Turners. I haven't run away from the plantation right now in my current life. So what makes me think I would have ran away from the plantation if the books of destiny would have had me been born back then? So all I can say is thank God I wasn't born back then. You see, I'm not one of these black people who live in the past. But gang violence is still around. Why? And why is it growing? They used to blame it on crack, the crack epidemic, and say, the crack epidemic is fueling the gang violence. Well, guess what? The crack epidemic, we overcame that one. The crack epidemic and the gang violence epidemic, that is the Nagasaki and Hiroshima of the black Americans. But like the Japanese, we will overcome. And we will free ourselves. Because we never freed ourselves. We were freed. We were freed. We didn't free ourselves. Not yet, anyway. And maybe black people, we can free ourselves. So we were freed. Yes, we were freed according to the Constitution. We are no longer slaves. And that brings me to the 13th Amendment. And I've been saying, screaming from the hilltop, Ava DuVernay's documentary 13th, which is on Netflix and is actually on YouTube for free, is the most important documentary of the new millennium for black Americans. Go watch it. That's your homework. If we're saying what's next, then I'll tell you what's next. We go watch 13th on YouTube by Ava DuVernay. Because we need background knowledge. Goal-oriented conversation. We got to have the background knowledge presented in Ava DuVernay's documentary 13th, which is on Netflix, which is on YouTube. And even if you've seen it, watch it again, especially I would say the first 30 minutes. Fallout.